to HB 518.
House Bill 518 by Representative Cameron of the 1st and others to be entitled an act to amend Title 34 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to labor and industrial relations so as to change certain provisions relating to employment security. This bill has been referred to the Committee on Industry and Labor. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Representative Mike Cameron is recognized to present the bill.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, colleagues. I bring a bill today on behalf of the Georgia Department of Labor regarding administrative assessments. In 1987, the legislature passed a bill creating an administrative assessment for employers in the state of Georgia. This small amount of wages, percentage of wages, goes towards the administrative cost of the Department of Labor. It's been renewed numerous times over the years. Unfortunately, in 2022, it was not renewed and it sunset and reverted back to a rate that was before 1987 based on the tables from the Department of Labor. This bill will put it back at the rate that it was last year, which is 2.64%. The second part of the bill is Article 6, creates a percentage assessment of 0.06% that will be assessed to new employers who haven't built up the experience with the Department of Labor. Mr. Speaker, that's the bill. I'll answer any questions.
The gentleman yield for a question.
Yes, sir. I yield.
The lady from the 108th, Representative Jasmine Clark, to your left, has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
So can you clarify, you said new employers will have 0.06% fee on top of the 2.64%?
That's correct, because they don't have an experience built up with the Department of Labor. The rates are based on, it's almost like an insurance rate. The newer you are, the higher your rate is. As they build up experience with the department, the rate will be calculated at a lower rate.
Does the gentleman further yield?
Yes, ma'am.
When do you stop becoming new? So how long will these newer businesses be required to pay the extra 0.06%?
That hadn't been specified.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There is another speaker on the bill who wishes to be heard. Representative Holly is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All right. Thank you, members, for being able to hear me on this bill. Fortunately, I can say that while it was heard in the Industry and Labor Committee, many times we actually have a very good job of actually being able to bring questions on these matters to the forefront. Unfortunately, for that day, my high blood pressure was a little elevated, so thanks to your prayers, I was able to come back, but I could not actually pose these questions in committee, so I would like to address them here. And it's coming from a very different position than you might actually hear. This is really not something that we're seeing of Republicans and Democrats fighting it out. Nah. This is merely a measure I think that we should look into, particularly because we know that we've already seen a pandemic. We know that in order for us to have Georgia in a stable position, we need to be able to build back our accounts for our unemployment and insurance trust fund. And right now, because the rates that are particularly if you're looking section 1 and lines 37 to 41, we're seeing that the contribution rates for employers is actually, it's becoming suppressed. We know that, and I think probably all of us can agree in this chamber, that we know that the Federal Reserve, it's not above them to actually, in order to address the inflation, we know that they are willing to put the economy into another recession. And so therefore we need to be able to make sure that we are shoring up the investments into our unemployment insurance trust fund, but we have to do that in a way that does not have it so that only a minority of those employers are shoring up those funds. We need to make it so that it is broad across the board. If you'll notice, just follow with me if you will. I know some of this is a little granular. But if you look, for instance, for our section 1, you look for line 17, where you get Part A, and you compare that for line 32, that 2.64, the variance from that 2.7% to 2.64%. The part is that really you're looking at this on overall, Georgia's employers, for the most part, are paying at 1.23% into that trust fund. And so, we want to make sure that it actually is more balanced. When only 12% of the UI benefit payouts are attributed to employers who lay off workers who then enroll in unemployment insurance, they're assessed when determining Georgia's employees' level of trust fund solvency responsibility, and that's compared to a nationwide average of around 45%. So we again want to be on par, because we know that should Georgia find ourselves in a situation where we're now having to pay money out for unemployment insurance, we don't want to have our state have those funds dwindle down to where now we're having to rely on other states to borrow money from other states and to borrow it at a higher interest rate. We want to make sure that if we can be able to have it so that employers of themselves, new employers coming in, that 2.64%, that we can actually match that up. So that 2.7% is groundly, it's one that employers are paying into. Then we know that it's going to be able to help to be able to shore up those resources should we get into a situation where we're having a recession, okay? So I know a lot of this, sometimes you look and saying, well, you know what, isn't that just at the federal level? What are we doing this for? Can't we rely on the U.S. government to bail us out? But we already know that it's always better if we can be, I know it's probably going to be a surprise for you to hear a Democrat say this, it's probably best if we be conservative with our assets, making sure that our unemployment insurance trust fund actually has the money available. How will this help individuals in each of your districts? Very easily. Y'all forgive my Uncle Al, he done ate too much and too many jokes right now. But okay, all jokes aside, really, because it's not a funny measure.
Gentlemen, yield.
I'm sorry.
Gentlemen, suspend just for a moment. Respect the gentleman in the well. Continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We all want to make sure that for those workers who have to find those job opportunities, that they're able to do so not because they're reliant their whole life on this little bit of money for the unemployment insurance trust fund. We want to make sure that they're able to just get their resumes, be able to get, suits, get job training, get what's necessary to allow for Georgia to continue to remain competitive for those jobs that are coming here. And we know that money is actually through the unemployment trust fund. So we just want to make sure that while enough attention to detail has been explained for that 0.06% that is going to be drawn out for the administrative assessment fee by the that will come to the commissioner, we want to make sure that our reserves are stored up for those workers should they find themselves jobless, so that we can remain the #1 state in the country for doing business. We have to take care of Georgia workers, and by making sure that amount is actually one that our employers are able to pay into, that it's fair across the board, we won't be relying on other states to help us pony up funds when we need them. And that is all I have, but I appreciate, I would only suggest that you vote no on this bill. So when it comes back to committee, we have an opportunity to actually have an amount that's going to be fair and equitable for all Georgia businesses. And with that, I will yield the well.
The gentleman has yielded the well. The gentleman has yielded the well.